This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West Podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
And welcome to the Hockeytown West Podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
And we are joined by our good old buddy Tyler today for a Grand Rapids Griffins versus Milwaukee Admirals series preview for I guess what they call round 3, but what we call round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs for the Grand Rapids Griffins. But first, before we get to that, Tyler, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing well. It's a busy time of year. I was talking to Nick before we went live on air that since I kind of watch the World Championships and kind of help out here and there over at Daily Faceoff. I watch hockey 19 hours a day. It's something. So yeah, the West Coast games at the early 7 a.m. games there in Czechia. Yeah, it's a wonderful time right now.
There's worse jobs that you could have in the world.
There are worse
jobs. Trust me.
Yeah.
Could be working retail, could be a chef. No, I'm going to sit and watch hockey while also trying to raise a kid. That's the challenge. So you're sitting on my butt watching hockey all day. That's not a problem. Making sure the kid doesn't climb down the stairs because he's doing that now or wants to do that now. Yeah, that's the hard part. You got to keep your head on a swivel like a defenseman. There you go. And Nick, how are you doing today, sir?
Ready to be back. I'm excited. It's crazy. We went back to back recording on every day, and now it's just like a week and a half off, it seemed like. And now we go into an even weirder schedule with this round 2. So good to be back.
Tired. That's what happens.
Good to be back.
Yeah. That's what happens when the AHL decides to give the Griffins a week and a half off between rounds here and get themselves into an even weirder schedule going forward against Milwaukee. But, most of the things for us have lined up to where we can at least watch, the Walleye and the Griffins each night. And for the most part, it looks like we're going to be pretty lucky again this round. I don't know how we're going to continue to be that lucky, but we are. But let's dive into this series preview here because these guys go way back. I mean, these teams go as far back as I can remember being alive. But at the same time, they've only had, 3 playoff matchups, Tyler?
Yes, they first met. Well, you mentioned the rivalry. It goes back actually to the Griffins' first season. They played once in the 96-97 season because that was back when the Griffins were in the North Division of the old IHL and the Admirals were in the Midwest. It was kind of a wonky setup. So they actually didn't become division rivals until the 99-2000 season, and that just carried into the American League and has been that way ever since. But yeah, the first ever matchup, and I actually almost forgot about it until I was doing my research for the series, was 2006. Griffins had this weird run. They had, that was the year they had Jimmy Howard, they had Derek Meach. They still had a Chris Bull, Daryl Bootlin there being a tough guy, even though we were in the post-lockout era. So his days were numbered because he was one of those old school enforcers. And yeah, they got roughed up by Milwaukee in the conference finals there. Milwaukee ended up losing in the champion of Calder Cup finals. But yeah, those, and I put the picture on in my MLive article, and it just brought back some good memories because I remember those, because first of all, the fact that you don't see everyone wearing visors, that should show you how long ago the series was. The fact that it was 18 years ago makes me feel really, really friggin' old.
Yeah. But those jerseys, those were special. Those are classics.
Both the Admiral, I'm sorry Admirals fans and all Milwaukee and Aaron Sims and all those great people over there. I don't like the new logo compared to the old one. I like the grunting Admiral that they used to have. Not the skull one they have nowadays, but then again, I'm just, maybe that, call me old school, call me old fashioned, but I also like the Griffins the wings on the shoulders and the old logo. But once again, there's a reason why I don't work in marketing or PR or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. And for those that noticed, he said, yes, the Griffins got swept in that one. That's not a bad omen to this one because they turned around in 2016 and 2017 and did the same thing to Milwaukee in the playoffs. So something
happened in 2017 too. So yeah.
What?
We might have won a championship or, something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, comparisons for championship teams continue for this team.
Yeah, and the fact that Syracuse is still in the playoffs too over there in the East, there's that. So yeah, the comparisons keep going.
I'm all for history repeating itself. Can we not have the third Calder Cup final be against Syracuse, please?
We don't travel to the War Memorial there. We don't have to go to that old building. We can just stay here in our little building, and they come whenever. Like, sorry, Tampa's gotten rid of enough prospects and enough draft picks that, I mean, they're a good team still over there, but they are not the same Syracuse Crunch that they were when the Griffins were facing them all those years ago. At least because I mean, that's just how it happens when you're a Stanley Cup contender. You get rid of a lot of top end prospects, but they put the right team together, and they could make it back to the East Final for sure there with the Crunch.
It's a very, very good possibility. But at the same time, we're not talking about that one. We're talking about the one against Milwaukee. So let's dive into this preview here. So I want to throw it to you first, Nick. What is something that we need to look out for when we're taking on these Milwaukee Admirals in this round?
Throughout the whole regular season, it's been built up against Askarov versus Kosa. And crazy enough, that's probably not going to happen in this round. And if it does, it's a good omen for us. In the last round, watching Milwaukee against Texas, I was able to watch a couple of the games, and Texas looked good. I mean, they brought it the second half of the games, and they just bad luck, bad bounces, things like that just didn't go their way. But they started Askarov the first two games in Texas, and he lost both those games. They
Badly.
switched badly, yeah. And then they switched to Grosnick, and they won the next three. Even against our matchup for the regular season, like Askarov took 3 losses, and Grosnick had 3, but 1 was in overtime. I think they start with Grosnick in this one. We want to keep with Kosa and this series again, because I didn't see Waddy announce who was going to be the starter for this series. I'm assuming
it's Kos. It's Kosa.
It has to be Kos.
Yeah.
And he, 4-0-1 in the regular season against Milwaukee. So I think it's going to come down to the goaltending, and this is going to be kind of the bigger story with Grosnick.
Well, he was I remember Grosnick started the last game of the regular season against the Griffins, and let's be honest, he played well enough that Milwaukee could have won that game, and then the Griffins would have lost home ice advantage. People forget about that. And he's been around so long too. And it's funny, we mentioned the 2017 team. The Griffins actually played Grosnick in those playoffs. He was playing for San Jose at the time, and they met in the Western Conference Finals that year. So the Griffins have a playoff history with Grosnick, and obviously, it's unfortunate because Grosnick's one of those goaltenders that's always been. Let's be honest, he was kind of like Calvin Pickard for a very long time, or he just was always good enough that he could make an NHL team, but just couldn't find the right spot, couldn't find the right team. And obviously being with Nashville, you're never going to get a whole lot of time, even if you get bumped up to the NHL with guys like UC Saros in there. And when even his first stint with Milwaukee, there was Pekka Rinne. So it was just never the right time for him to kind of find a spot. So he's just been playing well. He knows the game well enough. He's like a Zane McIntyre. He's a guy that's always going to be good enough here and a reliable goaltender in the American League. And, he's showing it right now, and he showed it in that last series because Texas took it to Milwaukee in those first 2 games. Granted, they were at home ice, but when they came back to Milwaukee and the Grosnick played those games, you could see just a nice, comfortable confidence within the Admirals. Because if you really look over the numbers from Askarov over the last month or so, they haven't been great. Obviously, you could say the numbers are maybe inflated because of that 19-game win streak where Askarov won the bulk of those games. But Askarov was kind of looking mortal. It was similar to what we saw with the Ice Hawks, but heading into the playoffs when Drew Comesso, their prospect goaltender there for the Hawks, he was having some uneasy games too. So, yeah, if I'm the Admirals, I don't see any reason why you would turn to Askarov. And it's not like they have the NHL team calling down to him saying that we have to play Askarov. This ain't the Chicago Wolves and Carolina Hurricanes, so you don't have to worry about that. But I think it's going to be intense because you have an experienced Grosnick and a Sebastian Kosa on the other side who's got all this confidence. And even after that really bad game too, where he gave up 5 goals, and we can argue, I know we've had before, where it's like, can we really point the finger at Kosa for that game? But the way he bounced back in game 3, and then how he played in game 4 after some uneasy minutes there too, and where the Ice Hawks were trying to ruffle his feathers a little bit, stayed very calm in goal. And the confidence that the team has in him, the confidence he has in himself, the coaching staff, the organization as a whole. But it seems like, there's just that level that Kosa needs right now. And it's hard to see why anyone would think that he couldn't be an NHL goaltender here in the very near future, just by the way he's playing in that first round. And obviously the second round, he can even bolster his stock up even more.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big second round for Coast here. And, he's already given out one ring in this playoff season as he's now newly engaged. Congrats to big old Seabass there. That's pretty cool. Hopefully
he
collects
had
a
some
ring
time
of his
off to
own.
make that happen.
Yeah, right. It's good. Yeah, good for them. But at the same time, you're right. Like, the confidence in this kid's never been higher right now, and it's the guy I definitely want to see in that game one and all the way through the rest of these playoffs. Honestly, I just feel very confident, and you can tell, like you said, the team does too, and the leadership of the team definitely believes in what he can bring to the table. But in the other end, Askarov, like, Tyler, I want to pose this question. I know it's really early, and these are the fun, like, hot button questions, but should Nashville be concerned right now?
No, because let's be honest, this is going to be shocking to some Wings fans. If you look at, I mentioned him earlier, Jimmy Howard's numbers in his, like, the 08-09 season, his last real full year with the Griffins, he was terrible. He was not good at all. And I know the team around him wasn't that good either that season, but he looked like a goaltender that just wasn't comfortable. But then things worked out. Ty Conklin moved on from the Red Wings, so that someone had to back up Jimmy Howard. And that 09-10 season, we all remember, Jimmy Howard took over the starting job. So that's maybe the closest thing I can look at, maybe the quick and easy comparable, from Red Wings fans, because you can easily say that in order to be good in the American Hockey League, you need to be good in the NHL. Or you have to be good in the American League to make it to the NHL. But in reality, that's not necessarily the case, because numbers sometimes can lie based on how a team's in front of them, how the team's playing in general, how the quality of chances, the high danger scoring chances, blah, 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 all the analytics stuff. But, it's the playoffs. It's a long season. This is the most, really, I think Askarov, off the top of my head, has played in North America too. So it's obviously maybe a little bit wearing on him. And you know what? I think still next season, Askarov gets an honest look to get to the NHL. I don't see why Nashville would want to avoid giving him an opportunity unless they want him to still be a number one starter and keep him down in Milwaukee just so he keeps playing a lot. Because obviously, if you want a kid to develop, you don't want to say, all right, we have 7 games coming up over the next 2 weeks. UC Starlets, you're going to play 6 of them. Askarov will get you one on that second half of the back-to-back. That's not going to be good for his development. But if I'm Barry Trotz, I'm not concerned. I mean, unless he comes in, like Grossman gets hurt and Askarov comes in and really lays an egg, then yeah, I'd maybe get a little concerned. But 2 games in the playoffs on the road. Texas is always a tough place to play just because of the nice weather it can be down there. And Austin, Texas is such a nice, fun town to be in anyways. I'm not going to hold too much stock into that for sure.
Totally fair. Understandable. Had to ask, though. All right. So outside of goaltending, Nick, what's the next thing we need to look out for?
For us to look out for Milwaukee, they've got a couple good guys on their end for goal scorers. So Kuehl in the season series against us, he had 3 goals. Foudy had 3 goals. 1 was an empty netter. So I don't know how much you want to give him to that. And then I'm going to murder this guy's last name. I have no idea how to pronounce it. Maybe Tyler can step in.
You want to say his first name? I'd probably guess it for you.
Oh, no, I've got it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that guy.
Afanasiev.
Oh yeah, Igor. Yeah, Igor.
Afanasiev,
yeah, the Milwaukee, or not the Milwaukee, the Lumberjacks kid.
Lumberjack. Oh, he played in Muskegon?
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Oh, dang.
Oh,
Didn't even know. He had 3 goals, and then Shevkov had 2. So I mean, those were kind of their big scores against us. In the assist side, I mean, O'Reilly had 4, Schaefer had 3, and Kuehl had 2 for the season series. So it seemed like a lot of their assists were like they had 2. They made the extra pass, so there was always 2 guys on the assist for every goal that they had, just about. So I think, I mean, they really ride that top line. Stastny didn't really have a whole lot in the series, but I think he played for Nashville for most of the year. And I might be wrong with that, but he's back now since Nashville got bounced out of the first round.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you look at it too. There's a guy on their team that didn't really factor into the scoring much in the regular season against us, but he was an absolute pest in Zach LaRue, and he's leading the league in AHL assists right now in the playoffs, and it was absolutely clutch for these guys.
Yeah, that last game against Texas, he had 2 in the first minute. Just
Yeah, that's
absolute hit.
insane.
And he almost had a third later on. So I mean, he's coming on in it as well.
Yeah, 5
This is
goals
a
in the last
guy-
3 games of the series. He turned it on when they needed it to. And LaRose, I mean, he's got a good pedigree. You know, he's not a bad player, and he's a rookie too. I think that's what we got to remember. He's still a young kid, and the fact that he's producing at this rate, and those were, I mean, I know that people think the Calder Cup playoffs are still developmental playoffs, so maybe it doesn't have the same, you know, pressure as it would be in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I don't hold that. I don't think so at all. Like, the guys know, like, hey, this is a do or die. Our season could be done tonight. And he stepped up in that game 3 at 4 points. And, you know, that just shows that this is a kid he's someone I'm interested in seeing, because I think right now he's kind of on the bubble of where, like, you know, could be a soon NHL guy, but could be staying in the American League for a little bit. If he keeps playing the way he does in these playoffs, that's going to bump up a little bit, that conversation with Nashville for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, he's kind of the perfect Nashville player if you think about it. A guy that can go out there and he throws the body. He plays a rough and tough game, but he can also score. He can also shoot. He can also pass. Like, he's kind of got the whole package that team really likes to look out for, especially when you add the toughness aspect to it.
Yeah. Would you consider him more like the dark horse of the series then?
Well, it's hard to consider him a dark horse when he's leading in points. I mean, he's someone they're going to watch out for sure. Coming into these playoffs, yeah, I'd say he's the dark horse and a guy that might be overlooked, like you said, with Efanasiev and with Kuehl and whatnot, and obviously Liam Foudy. Like, those are a couple guys that are really prominent goal scorers and guys that are high end prospects. But, you know, it's similar to, I think, when you see a guy like Austin Czarnik, when you can look at the numbers and see one thing, but when you see him perform in the playoffs and see him perform in game film, you see him like, oh, this is an important player. He's not just, you know, what his stat line says. So that's why I think LaRoe, yeah, probably going to that Texas series. Yeah, he might have been, all right, this guy may contribute, but now we know he can contribute.
Yeah, and we're seeing kind of the opposite of what we saw with him in the regular season, where he was taking bad penalties, putting Milwaukee in some difficult situations. I mean, he's got 6 penalty minutes so far in the playoffs here. Like I said, he is leading the team. And for the playoffs so far, there are 3 leading scorers for Milwaukee, all rookies, which is wild to me.
I mean, that's a good thing, right? When you have some freshmen that are stepping right into their roles and, you know, first time pro hockey playoffs or first American League playoffs and doing well. I mean, that's certainly a good sign to see. And like I said, it was such a weird series too. So it's hard for me because, like, I'm always the kind of person, like, it's easy to see, yes, you know, this guy's got 5 goals and 4 assists and 3, and really, you know, 5 goals in 3 games. That's obviously important, but seeing how he produces and seeing how they come together and perform, that's where I think that's why you watch game film and you sit there hours and hours scrolling at this one player and watching the same play 5 times in a row, these same 3 seconds, because you want to see what they do. And when they make smart plays and they're finding themselves in the right scoring positions to find the back of the net, that's what makes them impressive. And that's why Nashville, despite the fact that, yes, they're a mediocre team that somehow always gets into the playoffs just barely because of good goaltending, they have good prospects. They just need to find a way to translate them to the NHL level, because Eli Tolvanen's another guy that I always talk about, like a guy that, oh, yes, he can score in the American League, he can do stuff in the NHL if he's given the right opportunity. These guys, I just wonder if that's going to happen. But yeah, right now, they're doing the right things. I know that's a very weird tangent, winding road to say that they're good, but that's kind of how I'm going with it.
They're good.
And
I mean,
Coffee hasn't quite
Milwaukee-
kicked yet. I'm sorry.
they're here for a reason. You know, they finished number 1 in our division.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee's been a good team historically for a long time in the AHL. And granted, like you said, it doesn't usually translate, unfortunately, for Nashville. But this is probably, looking at the way the playoffs could shape out, besides, you know, the finals, this is probably the toughest matchup that we'll have to deal with when it comes to just like how even these 2 teams are.
I was about to say, you
Obviously,
tell
the finals
Coachella
could be a
Valley
different story.
how easy this matchup is going to be.
I said outside the finals. Outside of that,
Boy, Coachella Valley. Yeah, that team is. If Coachella Valley doesn't make it back to the finals, I mean, sorry, there's something wrong over there, because they have an NHL ready coach and a really good couple of prospects on that team.
yes, they do. Outside of that stuff, enough of stroking Milwaukee's ego to say what we got to look out for them. Tyler, I'm going to throw this one to you. What do you think the Griffins will be able to capitalize more on against Milwaukee that they might have struggled with against Rockford?
I would love to say their power play, but man, they were trying some things out. I was at practice yesterday and wasn't at practice today, unfortunately. I don't know what it is with all this talent, all these weapons on the power play. And I was talking to a couple people off the ice about it. I'm like, they just need to find a way to shoot the stinking puck on the power play. And it's funny whenever you talk to Bergen about goals and whatever, he says he's a better passer, but I think that's a lot of BS. This kid can shoot, and I know they work on plays, they work on setups to find openings on the power play. If you can see the goaltender, just rip it at him. Put it if you can see him and it's a point shot, throw it low, look for a tip. Just get pucks on net, because that's how you're going to score goals in the playoffs. You're not going to score the fancy tic-tac-toe through the box one-timer pretty highlight reel goal. You're not going to be able to do that, because teams that get to this point of the playoffs and in the season, they know how to defend a power play. They know how to get sticks in lanes and be in the right spot to cover the other team's offensive weapons. I think the power play can be good against Milwaukee. It should have been good against Rockford. They just need to do the little things right and get pucks in the net. Now, in what I think they can do, or something they should definitely take into the series from Milwaukee that they showed in Rockford, is the resiliency. Now, falling behind in a game is never ideal, but the fact that this team is, and even going from a bad game in game 2 and playing much better in game 3, I like the fact that they showed that they can overcome adversity, even if it's in small moments or big moments. That's what I think that is what makes this Griffins team special, and something we haven't seen in years past, because we talked about it before. The Griffins go down 1 or 2 goals. All right, boys, this was fun. Let's just get through this. Maybe get a point here or there, get a goal here and there, make the stat line look pretty, but we're going to take this 5-3, 4-2 loss and go on our way. This team does not think that way. They say, all right, we're down 2 goals. Fine, let's get 1, and then we can try to get 2, and then we can try to get 3. That's what they did in game 1 against Rockford. That's what they had to do in game 3 as well. They got the first goal, but they fell behind, and then game 4 fell behind early and quickly responded just a couple minutes later. That's what this team needs to keep doing. Now, if you're Dan Watson, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have to come from behind. But if they can keep that resiliency and that mindset of like, all right, guys, yeah, we're down, but we're not out. If they can keep that going into this series, they can definitely have the opportunity to take that into the next series if they keep that going.
Yeah, and I think that kind of comes from, like, I don't know how much of the behind the benches stuff you've watched or that the Griffins have been releasing or anything like that, but like Dan's very clear in his message that every game is going to be harder. Game 1 is going to be easier than game 2 in this round, and it's just going to continue to get harder and harder and harder. And that mindset is so important, especially with these young kids, to understand, like, okay, yeah, we got that win. Tomorrow is going to be twice as hard, and it's going to only get harder and harder. And outside of that too, like there's a confidence in that locker room that when they fall behind, that there is no panic, there is no worry, there's no concern. We've been here before, unfortunately, but we know how to do this. We've done it many times this season. You watch what the Red Wings started to do at the end of the season there, and that miracle moments that they were having. Like, these guys are good at doing that stuff and being resilient. So I think they will continue that against Milwaukee. The most important thing for me, and I think Nick will piggyback off this, is they did a great job keeping their emotions in check against Rockford. Milwaukee's going to take that all up to another notch. Like, they're going to try to piss this team off more than Rockford even got close to doing. So keeping those emotions in check is going to be super key, I think.
So I'm going to piggyback, but not off that.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to give you a topic, Nick, and you're going to avoid it. Cool. There we go. I'll get you a cookie here in a second.
Classic Nick. No, I mean, the one thing is the power play. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible the entire regular season.
Terrible for 3 years.
Yeah, and they have so many weapons to be able to do it. But the one thing that I was able to pull from the series against Milwaukee for this regular season was that they're better on the power play against this team for whatever reason than their regular season stats. They finished at 22% compared to 17% for the regular season in the regular against everybody. So I think for whatever reason, they've been able to figure out the power play against Milwaukee's penalty kill. So I think that's going to be a key. If they can get that going, this team's going to be unstoppable. They will not lose a game again. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see you guys' faces.
Sure as he comes out next or comes out in a couple weeks, buddy. Calm down.
We saved that
team
for
will
the
never
Toledo
lose
episodes,
again.
bud.
Yeah, we saved those for Toledo. But so I think that's going to be a big piece. But the other thing too is that you guys mentioned, and watching the behind the benches, I was only able to watch just a little bit of it the other night. So I'd still need to catch up on the second episode. But the big thing that I pulled from Dan Watson was it was more of like, we need to grab our momentum, go back, get out there, grab the momentum. It wasn't getting a goal. It was just get momentum back. And then that'll build, and then that'll build, and just keep going with that. And that will turn the game. And I think that's so important, because that's the small thing, right? And that's going to lead to your bigger objectives of going in. So it's just going out there, throwing the body. It's it's forechecking, it's back checking, it's getting the pucks in deep and getting it to the net. Like, just small momentum things to be able to sway. And you've seen it in Rockford. Like, they're laying the body out in that last game, and they're hitting everybody. And I think it is important to keep the emotions in check, but I think they do a good job with that against Milwaukee. I think they played very similar styles as each other, which makes sense based off of how many, like, the stats are so close between these two teams.
Yeah, and it's funny, you mentioned Dan there, and that's one thing I've noticed from him and his message whenever we talk to him after games, win or loss. He mentions, yeah, it's a big goal, or that was a big play, or that was a key save or something. But reality, he looks at trends, which I think separates great coaches or good coaches from great coaches. Not just the fact that, oh yeah, we scored 2 goals in that period. That was the big part. It was, hey, we created chances because we came out and we gained the momentum back, and we got a couple good looks. We took the play to them by doing this. It wasn't the fact that the results are the reason why they were successful. It was, hey, we had a good start. And because when I was talking to him, I was going back to game 1. I'm like, yeah, you guys fell behind, but you guys look like you had a good start. And that was from my perspective, just watching on AHL TV. And he says, well, we didn't have that great of a start, but we started to get chances and, started to gain some momentum back. And that's when I'm like, wow. Because in reality, some coaches are like, yeah, but you know what, Tyler? Yeah, we got some chances, but we fell behind 2-0. Dan doesn't see things like that. And that's why that's why I think he's right for this team, but also it makes him a much more of a deeper, thoughtful coach in a way. Like I sit here and I watch Dan all the time, and I talk to him all the time, and he just comes with a different approach. And yes, it's because we've had Simon for the last few years, so it's a different voice, and so that might perceive the perception on him. But it just seems like he has the tools and the thought process and the outlook on the game that can lead him to another level. I know it's year 1 in the American League, but like just let's keep an eye on this. If this keeps going in the right direction, Dan's not going to be, it's not going to be like Toledo where he's there for 10 or so years, kind of just staying with one team. He might be heading somewhere if he keeps doing what he's doing, because I think the Red Wings brass are seeing that, not just because the players are doing well and the guys that are getting called up to Detroit are fitting right in and playing well. He's doing things right, wearing the suit and tie, that's getting these guys to play the right way. It's refreshing to see because of the previous establishment, but also the fact that he just comes with this confidence and, oh yeah, this sucks, but we'll get him back tomorrow. And this is how we're going to do it. Like he has a plan, and he's executing it. It's just fun to work with him and see how he's changing the mood with this team, and I guess the outlook on the development system here at the Red Wings.
Yeah, it is a breath of fresh air for sure. And I agree with you. I think he won't be here as long as you would think he's going to be here.
Not going to be as long as he was in Toledo. No offense to the folks of the Walleye or the Griffins.
No.
He keeps doing things right, man.
Hopefully he stays with our organization though, because like his
What's
mind,
wrong
the way
with
he
Malone?
works.
You jerk.
And
love
He
Derek.
can be an assistant coach up there.
Oh, that's a good point. I thought you were just saying he's just going to do a blast shell and just go in there. No, I like Derek. He's a fair
No, honestly, put both those two behind the bench up there, and I'm frothing at the mouth at that point. Like, let's go.
It only worked in Toledo there, Cookie, so why not do it again? Why not run it back in Detroit?
It just makes sense.
Right.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with.
But it makes sense.
Thanks, Dad. No, I agree with all the takes there on that. You guys said everything I would have wanted to say on that point, and yeah, I feel good about everything going into this, which is going to lead me into my last question for both of you. I'm going to throw it to Nick first.
Oh, jeez.
Your prediction for this series?
I think it goes to the full off. Is it? There's 5 games in this series, right?
Jesus fuck! You did all that prep work, and you don't know how many games in the fucking series.
Hey, it's been a while since we've been this far, guys. All right,
Yeah.
I didn't remember this. Ever since they added the first round, I have to remember that
Yeah.
they bumped down the division finals to 5 games. Like, it's been that long since the Griffins have been this far, guys. Okay,
I know.
and let's be honest, even the Marlies, the Maple Leafs AHL affiliate, they haven't really made it that far too often, ever since they won the Cup in 2018. So I don't know anymore. I don't know how things work.
All right, Nick, go ahead and start that again.
In my defense, this is my first year covering the Griffins in the playoffs too. So this is a wonky series. I think it goes to full game 5. I mean, I think Milwaukee's tough. They've been close on every game. It's been funny to see like the previous games against. It's like Griffins win 4-2, and then Milwaukee comes back and wins 4-2, and then the Griffins win 2-1 in overtime, and then Milwaukee wins 2-1 in overtime. So it's just been like it's been very back and forth, but it's very even. Even the shots for the entire series has been. Griffins have got 1 more, and then 3 goals more than what Milwaukee had in the season series. So I think Griffins do take it. I think they have more depth. Just looking at goals and assists from the teams, like we just have more depth. I think we have more talent on this side as well. And Waddy's used to having this much time off. So I think the guys are ready. And you saw Bergie running the marathon the other day. So, I mean, he's ready to go. So I think Griffins take it. It'll probably be 5 games. You'll probably see 1 or 2 in overtime. That'll be real close. And hopefully they play the rest let them play like they did the last series.
Okay. All right. Tyler?
You know, it's funny. You mentioned the Bergie thing, and I actually asked someone about the team about that. I'm like, all right, who planned that? Because, you know, social media teams just want to, get the cool shot and the cool moment, right? And honestly, because there was a concert going on down at Van Andel, the guys were just coming back from practice at Griffs, and there just happened to be a good chunk of runners running, and Bergie in flip-flops, because obviously he didn't put shoes on. He just took off his skates and put his flip-flops on and jumped in the car and came back to the arena. He just said, hey, watch this, guys, and apparently just started running. And I don't know if it was Andrew or someone around there just happened to be walking out of the office and saw, here comes Bergie just running down Ottawa there. And like, yeah, there's a funny little shot. And just, and as soon as I saw that, I'm like, it's good to see Bergie just having fun. Because when he first came back from Detroit, you could tell he was a little grumpy. But, I think he's warmed up, kind of back to what we know him that he can be. But back to my prediction here. I said this in the piece in my preview. Yes, the first 3 playoff series between these 2 teams in history have gone the minimum. They've been sweeps. There is not a chance in double hockey sticks that this series goes anything less than 5 games. It's just going to be back and forth. I think the time off will hurt the Griffins in game 1. I think they'll come back with a better outing in game 2. I mean, both the teams have won in Milwaukee and Grand Rapids. So I don't think one team's going to have a huge home ice advantage. So it's going to come down to game 5. And you know what? Who knows at that point? Because when you come to a do or die game, anything can happen. Who knows if Grosnick, has 2 really bad games and they have to go back to Askarov, and then you have game 5, and then you have 2 of the best goaltending prospects, I think, right now in the AHL, guys that are going to be in the NHL in the next couple of years, going at it in a do or die game. That's going to be must-see TV right there for sure. We're going to have to poke the NHL Network and tell them to stop doing their pointless NHL Tonight coverage and put that game on TV, because it's going to be a big game. And so with that, I hate making predictions because unfortunately, whenever I make them, I'm usually wrong.
So pick Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Philadelphia. Golly, because in reality, I do agree with Nick in some points that there is more depth, but I just think Milwaukee's special teams are going to be such a key factor in this series. Oh man, I don't want to. That's why I don't make predictions, because I don't want to if I make the one that's on my mind, I'm going to anger everyone that watches this and listens to this. But also, if I say that one, I'm going to jinx us. So it's like, can I just do the Kirk Herbstreit thing and just give the keys to the series and call it good? Do I actually have to make a pick on who's going to? Can I just say it goes 5 games and may the best team win at the end?
No, just look into the camera and say it. We'll clip it later.
Yeah, well, let's do 2 clips, and then we'll just wait till the end of the series, and we'll re-edit it in there once the series is over.
Gaslight all of our listeners.
Oh no, Cookie, you go first. Give me like 2 minutes.
All right, I'll give you 2 minutes because my prediction on how many games this goes is actually different than both of yours. It's not 5. I think this goes in 4. I do think the Griffins do struggle out of the gate. I actually think they win game 1. I think they lose game 2.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why. I just feel like Monday and Tuesday night games that I've watched this season, for some reason, we've been absolutely horrific. I don't know if it's just with the day or if it was just because it was in Cleveland. I don't know. But I think back to the beginning of the season when the Griffins weren't the Griffins that we watch now, but Milwaukee was pretty well put together at that point. They didn't really struggle like we struggled at the beginning. And there was a specific game where I've watched the Griffins shut down Milwaukee in a way that I had never seen them shut down a team before. It was the game where Milwaukee could do nothing. I think they had maybe a total of 15 shots in the entire game. One period, they had 2. And that was with a disheveled Griffins roster that had no clue who each other were still at this point. And they went through and found a way to get that victory, and they did it in a big way. And if the Griffins can play any of these playoff games like that, it's going to rattle Milwaukee at some point and be like, how the hell did they do that? How did they shut us down like that? We are the division winning team. We are the best team in the division. How did they do that? And it's going to leave them searching for answers, and I think it's going to throw some things off. So I think the Griffins are going to take this in 4, and I say the Griffins are going to take it because they ended Milwaukee's 19-game win streak in Grand Rapids. They won the last game of the season against Milwaukee in Grand Rapids to clinch that home ice advantage in the first round. I think they're going to add one more jewel to the crown and knock out the division champs in this round of the playoffs. So that is my prediction.
It's a good reasoning behind it. I'll go 5 games for the Griffs. I'll go with the Griffins. I was just kind of thinking about how all those games went and how, I mean, yeah, you talk about, I know it was a regular season game, but that 19-game win streak versus the 14-game point streak, you know, that got a lot of attention. That had a real heavy spotlight. And, you know, you could tell in the arena that day, you could tell by just the amount of media that was there for that game. It was a big deal, and the Griffins pulled it out. And Costa had a big game on that day too. So yeah, the Griffins show, and obviously that was on home ice, like you said. So obviously with game 5 being in Milwaukee, could it be a different story? Sure. But you know what? Just for the sake of it, I'm going with it. I'm going Griffins. Griffins in 5.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I'm not any other cancer from this program.
Not yet. Any other final thoughts? I want to give you guys both space to say anything else you want to add. So Tyler, you raised your hand first. You can go.
I do have one because not just game 1 of the Calder Cup Central Division Final starts tomorrow, but also the Pro Volleyball Federation semifinal starts tomorrow. The Grand Rapids Rise taking on the Atlanta Vibe. It starts at 7:00 the same time. So get out a second screen, have the Griffins and the Ads on one, and then on the other, on the CBS Sports Network, it's nationally televised, the Rise and the Vibe. First ever playoffs in pro volleyball history. Grand Rapids having a chance. And that's another preview I have on M Live. And it's actually, despite being 1 versus 4, because the Rise being the 4th seed, it's a very even matchup. So worth watching both of those, y'all. So do that. Watch it on the hardwood and on the ice.
I didn't know that was actually nationally televised, so that's actually pretty awesome. Good for them.
They've had 3. Yeah, the Rise had a lot of firsts. They had the first ever match in league history. They won that. And then they had the first ever nationally televised match, which they lost. But that's okay. It wasn't against Atlanta. So they just need to find a way to beat Atlanta on tomorrow. And then they play Saturday in Omaha, because Omaha, big volleyball city. So
fair enough. Nick, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah. So as I was going through the stats for the season against the 2 teams, one thing to pay attention to is we gave a guy last round a pretty hard time of Carter Mazer. He actually lit up Milwaukee in the series. He had 5 goals in 8 games. All of those assists, besides one was from Marco Kasper, but all of them were with Sarnik and Berggren. So it's something to pay attention to. The other one is Elmer Soderblom had 2 goals, who was our second leading goal scorer against him. And now Elmer's back. He's healthy. He's back in the lineup. something to pay attention to. And then Simon also had 2 goals in 1 game. So that was like kind of we didn't get to round out our Griffin side, but that is important to note. And Bergie had 5 assists. So like that's, if he's not scoring them this round, hopefully he's getting the assist back to Mazur. So that lineup, and if Dan Watson throws that line out again, like that's going to be a big line to watch.
I don't think you see a shakeup in the lines. I wouldn't be shocked if you see him go 11-7 in game 1, just like they did the last 2 games, just to get more defensive leadership out there like they did. Because I don't see how you don't put Didier in the lineup after those last few games, but that's just me.
The other thing too is like our defenseman led in assists, like huge. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they attack our defense and our defense in the offensive zone. So things to keep an eye on.
Good little nuggets of information. Tyler, you looked like you had one more thing you wanted to say to that.
Well, I was just saying, sorry, I was not quite on that, but I was quick. I had my side screen going. The PWHL playoffs are going on right now. Boston just swept Montreal 3-0, and another overtime game, not triple overtime like it was on Saturday, but Susanna Tapani, 2 overtime goals in as many games, and Boston has knocked off the number 2 seed Montreal team. And boy, oh boy, this is so much. Oh my God, so much hockey, women's hockey, NHL, AHL, World Championships. It's so much fun.
And
they're so happy.
And the ECHL, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. The Toledo Walleye, who will never lose again. Take that, Kansas City.
And the CHL.
And I got the Memorial Cup coming up, which I'm going to be covering. I got an interview with Michael Misa coming up here for the Saginaw Spirit. That's going to be cool. Yeah, there's that. There's a lot going on. Are there any other sports going on right now? I don't know.
I think baseball exists, but we're unsure at the moment.
Well, the Blue Jays and Tigers both suck, so it doesn't matter.
All right. Well, with that, folks, thank you, Tyler, for hopping on. This is always the time where we give somebody an opportunity to tell people what they're working on, but I think you just rattled it off there pretty quickly.
Doing lots of things, man. Stuff and things.
Exactly. But tell the people where they can find you.
It's right there. If you're watching us on the YouTube, it's right there at TJKU29 on all my social media handles. I post stuff all the time. I post sometimes pictures of my adorable child and my puppy, and but mostly stuff about hockey, mostly hockey.
Perfect. Nick, where can the people find you? No, I'm kidding. I know where to find you.
Hold on, it's right at work. Can I reach into his shot and just point over at his thing? It's right there. Arms like that.
Well, Tyler, as always, man, thank you for hopping on. We appreciate it. And we hope to have you on again for a preview of the conference finals. And you yourself have a great rest of your night. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you again to Tyler, as always, for hopping on. It's always good to get his insight and his stories sometimes about these teams. He's a wealth of hockey knowledge that once you give him a nickel, he's going to run for a couple miles.
It's always good to have him on, because his knowledge goes way farther back than mine, and so to get his perspective is always good with this team, because I'm brand new to this team, ish.
Ish. Yeah, and I have the memory of a goldfish, so he always kind of brings up things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But anything else you want to add to this week's episode, sir? This preview of what is to be a thrilling series between these two teams.
I'm ready for it to start. I just
good.
Every day I've been watching hockey, but it's been like NHL or Toledo, or I haven't really been following the Canadian Hockey League at the moment with everybody being eliminated, that besides Portland. But it's just, I'm ready for it to start. I want our boys to go. I'm kind of excited to go back to recording every night.
Yeah.
This has been a weird week. In my job, we need 4 people, and we've been running it with 3, but those last 2 weeks, it's only been, or 2 or 3 weeks, it's only been 2 of us. So I'm getting to the point of my brain is mush. So it's sorry for all the errors.
That's all good. They'll get edited out. Don't worry. No one will ever hear them.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. In a future episode.
All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. We greatly appreciate you. We also appreciate our sponsor, Everything Hockey. Make sure you head over to everythinghockey.com. Use code WEST to save $3 off your order. Pick yourself up a hoodie since Michigan can't decide if it wants to be 80 degrees or 50 degrees. Oh my God, it's freezing out right now for some reason. Yeah. And also, again, thank you to Tyler. We appreciate you, man. Everybody have a fantastic week. We will talk to you tomorrow after game one, or today after game one, whenever this is posted. But we will be talking to you guys after every Griffins game again, just like round one. Yes, we're going to do it again. We are that crazy. We promised we'd do it, and we're going to stick with it. So we will be talking to you guys after every Griffins game, and of course on Friday with another Toledo Walleye update as they head into their next round too. So everybody have a great week, and we will talk to y'all then. Go Griffs, go Walleye.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at Brandon GR Hockey.